Hello. Hello. It's Friday afternoon, and I just thought I would read a little bit of Eckhart Tolle's book again today. And I'm just looking at, I'm here by myself, so I'm looking at how do I share this thing. Usually somebody else is doing this, either James or JR has done it a couple of times for me, and I'm not sure how to do it. I've never done it before. How do I do it? I'm going to go back to the page and see if I can do it there. Really like to share it a bit, but I'm not sure how to see it. Hi Barb, thanks for watching, hon. I'm just, oh, there I am. I see it. And now I'm going to share. Let's see. I guess I could do it in my news feed. Let's try that. Hi, Jennifer. Just gonna do this one, I guess. Just if you're tuning in, I'm just sharing okay, getting close. I'm only going to do one, I guess. All right, that's it. I just shared it on my timeline. Okay, it says I'm live, and there it is. Okay, here I am. We're going to get the book. Let's get the book. Is it, Barb, is it working? It doesn't seem to be on mine. Can you tell? Oh, there it is. I got it now. It's working. There we go. Okay, here we go. I know it's 4:40. I want to be finished by 5, so I'm only going to read for about 20 minutes. It's maybe a little too dark in here. Hang on a second. I'm just going to open this. Yeah. Now it's bright. You guys. All this professional lighting, eh? Here we go. All right. So we're Power of Now. I think we're halfway through chapter 5, if I'm not mistaken. Chapter 5 was called The State of Presence, and yesterday we read about half of it, and we're now on page 104. And so I'm going to see if I can read maybe 10 pages or so. Can you hear me? Oh, do you know what I didn't do? Barb, can you hear me okay? I'm going to plug in this little mic, and because it really really seems to make a difference. Yeah. There we go. How's that? Good. Awesome. I plugged the mic in anyway. There we go. So, middle of chapter 5. The subtitle is everything just great. Thanks, Barb. The subtitle is Christ, the reality of our divine presence. He says, don't get attached to any one word. You can substitute Christ for presence if that is more meaningful to you. Christ is your God essence, or the self, as it is sometimes called in the East. The only difference between Christ and the presence is that Christ refers to your indwelling divinity, regardless of whether you are conscious of it or not, whereas presence means your awakened divinity or God essence. Okay, so like Christ, he's saying, is there whether we are aware of it or not. And presence is more about us being aware and conscious of our God essence. Many misunderstandings and false beliefs about Christ will clear if you realize that there is no past or future in Christ. To say that Christ was or will be is a contradiction in terms. Jesus was. He was a man who lived 2,000 years ago and realized divine presence, his true nature. And so he said, before Abraham was I am. He did not say, I already existed before Abraham was born. That would have meant that he was still within the dimension of time and form identity. The words I am, used in a sentence that starts in the past tense, indicates a radical shift, a discontinuity in the temporal dimension. I think I have to read that again. Okay, I'm going to start this paragraph again. Holy Toledo. Many misunderstandings and false beliefs about Christ will clear if you realize that there is no past or future in Christ. To say that Christ was or will be is a contradiction in terms. Jesus was. He was a man who lived 2,000 years ago and realized divine presence, his true nature. And so he said, before Abraham was, I am. He did not say, I already existed before Abraham was born. That would have meant that he was still within the dimension of time and form identity. The words I am, used in a sentence that starts in the past tense, indicates a radical shift, a discontinuity in the temporal dimension. It is a Zen-like statement of great profundity. Jesus attempted to convey directly, not through discursive thought. He tried to convey directly, not through discursive thought, the meaning of presence, of self-realization. He had gone beyond the consciousness dimension governed by time into the realm of the timeless. The dimension of eternity had come into this world. Eternity, of course, does not mean endless time, but no time. Eternity does not mean endless time. It means no time. Thus, the man Jesus became Christ, a vehicle for pure consciousness. And that is God's self-definition in the Bible. Did God say, I have always been and always will be? Of course not. That would have given reality to the past and the future. God said, I am that I am. Not here, no time here, just presence. I am that I am. The second coming of Christ is a transformation of human consciousness, a shift from time to presence, from thinking from thinking to pure consciousness, not the arrival of some man or woman. If Christ were to return tomorrow in some externalized form, what could he or she possibly say to you other than, I am the truth, I am divine presence, I am eternal life, I am within you, I am here, I am now. A fairly deep conversation, isn't it? Never personalize Christ. Don't make Christ into a form identity. Avatars, divine mothers, enlightened masters, the very few that are real, are not special as persons. Without a false self to uphold, define, and feed, they are more simple, more ordinary than the ordinary man or woman. Anyone with a strong ego would regard them as insignificant, or more likely not see them at all. If you are drawn to an enlightened teacher, it is because there is already enough presence in you to recognize presence in another. There were many people who did not recognize Jesus or the Buddha, as there are and always have been many people who are drawn to false teachers. Egos are drawn to bigger egos. Darkness cannot recognize light. Only light can recognize light. So don't believe that the light is outside you, or that it can only come through one particular form. If only your master, if only your master is the incarnation of God, then who are you? Any kind of exclusivity is identification with form, and identification with form means ego, no matter how well disguised. Use the master's presence to reflect your own identity, beyond name and form, back to you, and to become more intensely present yourself. You will soon realize that there is no mine or ours in presence. Presence is one. Group work can also be helpful for intensifying the light of your presence. A group of people coming together in a state of presence generates a collective energy field of great intensity. I'll read that again. A group of people coming together in a state of presence generates a collective energy field of great intensity. It not only raises the degree of presence of each member of the group, but also helps to free the collective human consciousness from its current state of mind dominance. This will make the state of presence increasingly more accessible to individuals. However, unless at least one member of the group is already firmly established in it, and thus it can hold the energy frequency at that state, the egoic mind can easily reassert itself and sabotage the group's endeavors. Although group work is invaluable, it is not enough, and you must not come to depend on it, nor must you come to depend on a teacher or a master, except during the transitional period when you are learning the meaning and the practice of presence. Nice, eh? Well, that was the end of chapter 5. We're now at chapter 6. Page 107. If you have a book, follow along. It's so powerful, this book. I know I read it maybe 20 years ago, but my gosh, I guess I wasn't ready. So beautiful. Okay. The chapter 6 is called The Inner Body. Subtitle is Being. Being is your deepest self. Being is your deepest self. It starts with a question. You spoke earlier about the importance of having deep roots within or inhabiting the body. Can you explain what you mean by that? He answers, the body can become a point of access into the realm of being. Let's go into that more deeply now. Next question. I'm still not quite sure if I fully understand what you mean by being. He says, water. Water. Water with a question mark. Water. What do you mean by that? I don't understand it. This is what a fish would say if it had a human mind. Yes. Stop trying to understand being. You have already had significant glimpses of being, but the mind will always try to squeeze into a little box and then put a label on it. It cannot be done. It cannot become an object of knowledge. In being, subject and object merge into one. Being can be felt as an ever-present I am. Being can be felt as the ever-present I am that is beyond name and form. To feel and thus to know that you are and to abide in that deeply rooted state is enlightenment. To feel and to know that you are and to abide in that deeply rooted state is enlightenment, is the truth that Jesus says will make you free. Free from what? Free from the illusion that you are nothing more than your physical body and your mind. Isn't that funny? Free from the illusion that you are nothing more than your physical body and your mind. This illusion of the self, as the Buddha calls it, is the core error. Free from fear in its countless disguises as the inevitable consequence of that illusion. And free, the fear, it's funny, we started talking about fear and it came up. Hi, Kim. Welcome, love. We're glad you're here. We're on page 108. I know you don't have a copy of the book yet, but 108, and we're in chapter 6 now, the inner body. And it's pretty powerful. Okay. Free from the illusion, I'm reading this paragraph over, I lost my spot. Free from the illusion that you are nothing more than your physical body and your mind. This illusion of the self, as the Buddha calls it, is the core error. Free from fear in its countless disguises as in the inevitable consequence of that illusion. And the fear that is your constant tormentor as long as you derive your sense of self only from this ephemeral and vulnerable form. And free from sin, which is the suffering you unconsciously inflict on yourself and others as long as this illusionary sense of self governs what you think, say, and do. Subtitle: Look beyond the words. Question: I don't like the word sin. It implies that I'm being judged and found guilty. Eckhart says, I can understand that. Over the centuries, many erroneous views and interpretations have accumulated around words, such as sin, due to ignorance and misunderstanding, or a desire to control. But they contain an essential core of truth. If you are unable to look beyond such interpretations, and so cannot recognize the reality to which the word points, then don't use it. Don't get stuck on the level of words. A word is no more than a means to an end. It's an abstraction, not unlike a signpost. It points beyond self. The word honey isn't honey. The word honey isn't honey. You can study and talk about honey for as long as you like, but you won't really know it until you taste it. And after you have tasted it, the word becomes less important to you. You won't be attached to it anymore. Similarly, you can talk or think about God continuously for the rest of your life. But does that mean you know what that you know or have even glimpsed the reality to which this word points? It really is no more than an obsessive attachment to a signpost, a mental idol. Nice. Yes, I love honey too. Yeah, but the honey story was just a story, an analogy. Mm. I've been watching a video today also of Eckhart. Become a bit of an Eckhart fan. Um, a video that he did with Ramdas, and actually I've got it up here right now, and I think, well, it was published in 2014. Um, oh, I see, but it was shot in 2011. Ramdas, I think, um, is not well. He wasn't well then. He'd had a stroke, but an amazing man, an enlightened being, I believe. Um, okay, where was I? A mental idol. The reverse also applies. If, for whatever reason, you dislike the word honey, that might prevent you from ever tasting it. If you had a strong aversion to the word God, which is a negative form of attachment, you may be denying not just the word, but also the reality to which it points. That would be cutting yourself off from the possibility of experiencing that reality. All this is, of course, intrinsically connected with being identified with your mind. Condemnation prior to investigation can keep us all in everlasting ignorance. Anyway, that's not here. I just made that up. Well, I didn't make it up, but I just said it. So, if a word doesn't work for you anymore, then drop it and replace it with one that does work. If you don't like the word sin, then call it unconsciousness or insanity. That might get you closer to the truth. The reality behind the word, then, a long misused word like sin, the reality behind the word, then, a long misused word like sin, and leaves little room for guilt. Okay. That may get you closer to the truth, the reality behind the word, than a long misused word like sin, and leaves little room for guilt. Okay. Another little question here. I don't like those words either. They imply that there is something wrong with me. I'm being judged. Of course there's something wrong with you, he says. You are not being judged. Of course there's something wrong with you. You're not being judged, and you're not being judged. I don't mean to offend you personally, but do you not belong to the human race that killed over 100 million members of its own species in the 20th century alone? You mean guilt, and she says, you mean guilt by association? If not, it is not a question of guilt, but as long as you're run by the egoic mind, you're part of the collective insanity. Perhaps you haven't looked very deeply into the human condition in its state of dominance, by the egoic mind. Open your eyes and see the fear, the despair, the greed, and the violence that are all pervasive. See the heinous cruelty and suffering on an unimaginable scale that humans have inflicted and continue to inflict on each other, as well as on other life forms on the planet. You don't need to condemn, just observe. That is sin. That is insanity. That is unconsciousness. Above all, don't forget to observe your own mind. Seek out the root of your insanity there. Isn't that something? I love it. Yes, I do. Finding your invisible and indestructible reality. It's a subtitle. So it's so clear that making the connection with presence, with the higher power, and going into that presence on a daily basis and living my life from there can return me to sanity, and I like that. I really recognize that when I'm running the show from ego, I'm always in trouble. So, I need to continually let go and surrender to the moment, to God as I understand Him, whatever I want to call that divine intelligence, that presence. I like the word presence. It's beautiful. Finding our invisible and indestructible reality. Next subtitle. The question is, you said that identification with our physical form is part of the illusion. So how can the body, the physical form, bring you to a realization of being? Eckhart says, the body that you can see and touch cannot take you into being, but that visible and tangible body is only an outer shell, or rather a limited and distorted perception of a deeper reality. In your natural state of connectedness with being, this deeper reality can be felt every moment. I'm going to just go back over that. But that invisible and tangible body is only an outer shell. That visible and tangible body is only an outer shell, or rather a limited and distorted perception of a deeper reality. In your natural state of connectedness with being, presence, right? This deeper reality can be felt every moment as the invisible inner body, the animating presence within you. So, to inhabit the body is to feel the body from within, to feel the life inside the body, and thereby come to know that you are beyond the outer form, But the phone rang. I gotta finish up quick because that's a customer calling. So I'm gonna read one more page. Okay. But that is only the beginning of an inward journey that will take you ever more deeply into the realm of great stillness, and peace, yet also of great power and vibrant life. At first, you may only get fleeting glimpses of it, but through them you will begin to realize that you are not just a meaningless fragment in an alien universe, briefly suspended between birth and death, allowed a few short-lived pleasures followed by pain and ultimate annihilation. Underneath your outer form, you are connected to something so vast, so immeasurable and sacred that it cannot be conceived or spoken of. Yet I am speaking of it now. I'm speaking of it now to give you something to believe in, not to give you something to believe in, but to show you how you can know it for yourself. You're cut off from being as long as your mind takes up all your attention. When this happens, and it happens continuously for most people, you're not in your body. The mind absorbs all your consciousness and transforms it into mind stuff. You cannot stop thinking. Compulsive thinking has become a collective disease. Your whole sense of who you are is then derived from your mind activity. Your identity, as it is no longer rooted in being, becomes a vulnerable and ever needy mental construct that creates fear as the predominant underlying emotion. The one thing that truly matters is then missing from your life: awareness of your deeper self, your invisible and indestructible reality. To become conscious of being, you need to reclaim consciousness from your mind. That is one of the most essential tasks in your spiritual journey. It will free vast amounts of consciousness from that previously had been trapped in useless and compulsive thinking. A very effective way of doing this is simply to take the focus of your attention away from thinking and direct it into your body, where being can be felt in the first instance as the invisible energy field that gives life to what you perceive as your physical body. Wow. Okay, I'm going to call it. We're on page 112, and it's Friday afternoon. Kim, it must be late in the UK. Thanks for tuning in again. And, nice to be connected. And for all of those of you who are watching, Barb, if you're still there, thanks so much. You can find us on YouTube. I'd love it if you subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and We're also Instagram and all that. We got a website. Check out our website. Maybe order what would you order? You would order a meditation kit, maybe. That would be so cool. Okay. Love you guys. And tomorrow, Saturday, I'm going to see if I can read again tomorrow. And Sunday, I'd like to plow through this book. We're soon into June. Okay. That's it. Cheers. Love you. Bye.